This is exactly what metaverse adoption looks like.
Oh shit!
What the hell was that?
Okay, let's watch that one more time. Okay. This is, and again, this is exactly what metaverse adoption looks like.
Oh shit!
What the hell was that?
Okay, as you can see, my mom's first VR experience was kind of a disaster. Okay. If you asked me what metaverse adoption looks like, I would tell you, I would say metaverse adoption looks like we need the fucking moms running into their cupboards in the kitchen while their daughters are on their iPhone filming it for TikTok. That's what I would say. I would say that's when we kind of are at the chasm. When we got fucking moms with the VR headset running into the cupboards in the kitchen with the daughters or sons recording it and posting it later on TikTok. That's what I would say metaverse adoption looks like. So, I know some of y'all might be just a little bit more cynical. Maybe you're wearing those half-empty glasses on your eyeballs, so you can't see anything positive in life or joy. So you might be saying, "Oh, that's why metaverse adoption doesn't look like Jay." Oh, okay. Well, I got something for you. Okay. Now, I don't even like to do this with the stats and stuff because we all know stats are a bunch of BS. But when it comes to population stats, when it comes to actual adoption of tech, I think it gives us a good ballpark. We don't need to be exact. So, okay, about 53 million US adults currently own a VR system. Oh, okay, that's just in the US. Oh, okay, they own a VR system. Oh, okay. Well, that could be the Oculus, that could be the Vision Pro, that could be all sorts of different things. But wait a sec. Let's remember the iPhone. The iPhone was completely different. You had a touchscreen, very different metamorphic transformation from our little Blackberries or our little chocolates or our little flip phones or whatever you grew up with. Most of you are old, which is good. Old is beautiful, especially in wine. So when I say that, I'm just referring to the analytics I see on YouTube for the age group that watches my stuff. So yeah, you're like wine, you're aging really finely. You're aged better. You actually taste better with age. Okay. But for the youngins, more than a quarter of teens, 26%, own a VR device. Okay, so why is that important for the people with their half-empty glasses on their eyeballs? Well, let's just take a look at the total population. Okay, we 51 million, 52 million, whatever, own a VR or something. And then we got 331 million in the US. Oh, wait a second. That's a good amount of people that own one of these things. To the cynical people out there that are going to comment some BS. Wait a second, guys. Do you see that this is kind of a big number to the half-empty glasses people? Oh, okay, wait a second. Hold on. We're all familiar with Steve Jobs. We're all familiar with the pioneer speech that he gave on tech adoption. You got your pioneers, you got yada. So, I found this chart. I was like, okay, this is a pretty good representation, I think. I'd say pioneers kind of consist of both tech enthusiasts and visionaries. And I usually say that's 10%, but they're kind of being even conservative here. But if you take the fact that freaking 52 million people now own a VR system in the US, there's only 330 whatever million Americans. And then you look at some stuff that you learned in first grade called math, and you realize that's about 16% of all the US citizens. Where does that put us? So you have in tech adoption, you got your tech enthusiasts, right? Who are basically, Okay, this is something that I really like. I enjoy. I think it could be a little bit bigger. You got your visionaries. Then you got your pragmatists. These are people that can afford adopting new tech, integrating it because of competitive risks or to be more competitive. Let's just say. Then you got your your right-wing conservative types, right? Let's make it kind of a little bit less political and just call them people that are conservative in nature. These are probably what the people with the half empty glasses on their face really are. They're just kind of like in this kind of territory of being kind of conservative versus maybe even some of them being a little bit more towards this, which is skeptics. And this is all against time. So as time progresses, you sort of see these different thresholds cross. But if you notice, I said 16% of Americans have VR fucking headset or system. And you notice, right, that all these VR naysayers have been giving me a bunch of, just a bunch of flack over the last 4 years of my existence. And I've always been kind of calm, cool, and collective because I knew that this moment was coming. This moment's called the chasm. Okay. The chasm, it's the exponential adoption that follows this chasm where, you can kind of see like 13.5%. Oh, wait a second. Now we got 16%. Oh, you know what's coming next? 34%, then another 34%, and then another 16% because they'll have to. Unless they want to live on a reservation, which is fine, by the way. I actually think that that's cool. Like, I'm not one of these matrix, tyrants out here saying you gotta wear the VR headset. I'm not trying to prescribe you any kind of Apple Vision Pro. I'm not even a doctor to do that, okay? All I'm trying to say is that when it comes to the simple belief that next-gen immersive tech and next-gen interfaces for computing, in terms of how we're interacting with stuff, are coming, and it's smart to be in those spaces because you're going to get a tailwind. That is what I'm trying to, that's my belief. That's, based on this whole thing that I'm giving you. So, okay, Jay, fine, we're in this chasm now, but like, you got the moms, they're smashing into their cupboards. That's good. It's a product that sells itself essentially because you got the daughters, TikTok, and then yada, yada. But when it comes to people that view that TikTok, it's not like that TikTok is going to turn them off from VR. It's actually going to get them interested. And I'll tell you exactly how this happens for like most cases, right? You got your skeptics, okay? Most cases will see that and get curious about the product. And then you'll kind of, maybe stumble into having one yourself. And it's just this early stage here in the distribution of that content that only will stimulate the curiosity of the pragmatists who can use these Vision Pros. And, we're not talking about the conservatives yet. The conservatives are going to wait. We're talking about the pragmatists where we're at today, who are going to use this for productivity purposes. You don't have the apps that you had on the App Store day one of the iPhone. Nothing made sense yet. You didn't have things as, I guess, consumer friendly, right? But eventually all that stuff kind of came into the fray, and then you got your conservatives and skeptics on board, okay? And that's how this stuff works. It's no magic trick, okay? So take those half empty glasses off and put some normal freaking glasses on, man, because we should be balanced. It's not about half full, half empty. It's right. How much water does this freaking glass have? It's just do it by ounces. It's all good, man. But let's look at some TikToks. I don't know these people. I just simply have. Dude, what I love about this is this guy is just demonstrating something that Steve Jobs, is famous for saying, right? It's like when Jobs would talk about marketing, he'd always say, to me, marketing is about values. So if you value being highly productive, okay, and doing things that a normal human couldn't do, right? Like walking a crosswalk without having to look at your phone. And you could actually feel yourself enveloped by this new augmented dimension that takes into account the crosswalk, the cars, all that stuff, but you still want to maximize productivity and do cool shit that you probably couldn't do otherwise. You know, the values of something like the Vision Pro, it sort of is like articulating how a completely new way for humans to even be is possible, is actually getting more efficient, is actually getting more useful, and it's kind of like here today with these, but there's going to be certain, I think, there's just going to be certain moments that this hardware has that captures the global attention. We call those global attention moments, right? The DJ call it on Snapchat, right? Things like this. So it's kind of like, to me, this guy is maximizing his productivity, to say the least. But when it comes to the values, right? Like, what are the values of this? It gets kind of interesting, because what you really will probably see, I'd imagine, is more emphasis on immersion, bringing us together, than siloing us and having us look at our own hell screens on our phones all the time. You know what I mean? Because, like, when you're in a circumstance that you're watching the Lex Friedman interview with even Mark Zuckerberg, and them just doing it in a sort of dimension where they both are wearing their quests, their next gen quests, and they feel as though, you can hear Lex's, he's not going to lie to us. I mean, he might, but in this case, it didn't feel like a lie. It felt like they were real and next to each other. So having tech, over the last 10, 12 years, pull us apart in so many different ways, but now maybe be able to bring us together, I could just see it as, this thing that you can't do. Either you're looking at your phone or you're looking at the crosswalk, and you can't do both at the same time, but now you can have some little stuff going on here and there. It'll probably be something like that, okay? But let's watch another. So I actually forgot that I put this one in, but this was to highlight the conspiratorial nature of new technology. Now, I've seen some folks that think that the AI is out to get us, man. Like, just the spiritual, some of the spiritual people that, whatever, I look at on TikToks, and they're freaking out, man. They're flipping out. They're saying the AI is part of this whole thing, this whole Ponzi scheme, essentially, to get us back and harvest us. And it's not all of anybody that's like, spiritual, but these people have like the robes on and stuff. They're talking about all this stuff, and they're saying that. And I don't know, man. Like, maybe that's true. I don't see it like that myself, personally. I kind of see it more like, okay, water can be good or bad, because you could drown a baby in water, but you could also save a human's life who's dehydrated with water. So I look at tech the same way. It's like, yeah, you can use it for some things that would cause destruction, but you can also use it for things that would enable creation. And I don't know, I haven't seen enough to really steer me off that belief. So when it comes to AI or some of this stuff, like I've never watched Black Mirror, to be quite frank with you. I know a little bit about, what the theme, the tones of the Black Mirror, if it was a wine, I don't know why wine keeps getting brought up here, guys, but if it was a wine bottle, the notes on the wine bottle for Black Mirror, I get it. Like, they're, dystopia, okay? I think. Anyways, really, there are going to be folks that will always say headsets will weigh too much for our heads. They'll never be comfortable enough. And I think that's just to escape the reality of this escapism that is coming to us, and having to kind of be part of that, right? Having to actually like, accept that this stuff is coming, man. It's going to be here really fast. And once it is, we're going to be interacting with clients differently. We're going to be, just doing a lot more, let's say, experiential type marketing. And you'll have digital twins. You'll have, I mean, a lot of the work that went on this year was interesting to watch, as companies like a company I've always liked because I used to use it when I used to take shots of listings that I had, right? Or like people's houses, right? For the pictures. It was a Matterport, okay? And Matterport, basically, it's come a long way since, but it was kind of like a subscription product. You call some fireman who, on his part time, when he's not saving people's lives, he takes Matterport drone shots, and he has this big Matterport camera. He's hooked up to the Matterport sort of like service, so he kind of subscribes there, and then he takes his big camera and he, every 5 feet he'll walk around the house and take a scan and take a scan, and then all of a sudden you have what's called like a virtual home, and you can really almost walk inside of it. And you can see this just by going on Zillow and looking up, I don't know, a few $1 million properties. You'll find a Matterport. Huge company in terms of real estate and the real estate industry. Now, they recently had done something that caught my eye, where they were just doing a lot of like partnerships and planning for Africa and the UAE. Now, Africa to me was interesting, but the UAE even more so, because if you follow this channel, you know that the UAE is all in on the metaverse, man. Like, they are all in on the freaking metaverse. And it's just kind of interesting when you see a name like Matterport, and when you see some of the reasons why they are sort of making plans and partnerships in those parts of the world as well. And one of the bigger things that comes up when I was reading their pieces was around digital twins, right? So I don't know, it's gonna get real interesting. Let's watch another. This guy is the fucking employer, he is like the MVP, man. He's the MVP, dude. I mean, this guy's productivity has skyrocketed since he got the Vision Pro. Like, you have to admit. He might be with his girl, and they might be doing some adult stuff, and who knows, maybe at the same time he's answering emails. I don't know. Like, I think this guy is the freaking MVP. You can drive with it. I mean, that's kind of an interesting thing. You can drive with this. Now, is your phone gonna be like, You know, do we all kind of look sometimes at our phone while we're driving? You know, yeah, we do. We all do. I mean, you know, don't be a liar. But you're not supposed to, right? Because you could get in a crash, okay? Or you could accidentally run over a squirrel that maybe you didn't want to run over because you could tell it was having a bad day. You know what I mean? So it's just about this extra leap, I think, for humans to be able to actually drive with this thing, to be able to do stuff while you're walking around. Okay. Now I was listening or I was thinking about, and then I pulled it up, the speech that Steve Jobs gave on marketing and marketing based on values. You know, when we in blockchain, I think put a lot of emphasis on things like TPS and performance, and we talk about the tech. You know, I can get the angst from our marketers in the space who are like, guys, that's not what we should be doing. I understand that. I really do. And I'll talk about why I still think we need to talk about the tech later on in this video. But ultimately, I completely agree with some of the marketers who get angst because of what Steve Jobs pointed out to the world a long time ago.
To me, marketing's about values. This is a very complicated world. It's a very noisy world. And we're not going to get a chance to get people to remember much about us. No company is. And so we have to be really clear on what we want them to know about us. Now, Apple, fortunately, is one of the half a dozen best brands in the whole world. Right up there with Nike, Disney, Coke, Sony. It is one of the greats of the greats, not just in this country, but all around the globe. And, but even a great brand needs investment and caring if it's going to retain its relevance and vitality. And the Apple brand has clearly suffered from neglect in this area in the last few years.
And you can hear him kind of discuss this. This was a pivotal speech because it's sort of, I think, without this moment in time, and you guys know what happened to Steve, and you know, just boards and public companies, you know, people start focusing on the things that make the money the quickest, and they forget about what made the company so successful in the beginning. And you know, I think, and then he starts to talk about, you know, marketing and how to really communicate those values. And I think in the world of something like Web3, it's quite interesting because, you know, you got a guy like Charles Hoskinson, for instance, and he's really good at, I think, developing these ideas that are only possible with the technology that we're kind of working on in the Web3 space. And I think he's really good at simplifying those ideas into almost a slogan, right? For instance, banking the unbanked, you know? And then you can take a look around the world and see that there's, oh, okay, in third world countries, there's people that don't have access to financial infrastructure or identification. And, you know, I think that hearing Charles talk about Steve Jobs a few times, he's definitely been inspired by Steve Jobs. So maybe that's kind of where it comes from a little bit. In some ways he has. I don't, you know, I'm sure he's got his own criticisms and stuff. But no, it's interesting because when we talk about marketing, okay, what happens here, right, with the 16%, you know, we got 53 million out of 331, so we're hitting that chasm. This is ultimately what you want marketing to lead up to in such a metamorphic, transformational evolution, like going from phones to VR. Are you kidding me? So to get there, the amount of the amount of stuff that you need to do. And that's why I believe all the VR people that follow me, like, they just understood early what this could do. And that's why they've been excited about it for such a long time. So shout out to the moms, man. Like, for real. Shout out to the moms out there. Just like women with kids, or some kind of, I don't know, like bears have cubs and stuff. Shout out to all the moms, and shout out especially to metaverse metaverse adoption. Shout out to metaverse. Here's to metaverse adoption. Here's to metaverse freaking adoption. That's why I would say, moms, you gotta have in the kitchen smashing into their covers with the VR headset while their daughter or son is filming it for a TikTok post later. If you ask me what metaverse adoption looks like, that's what I would say. 10 times out of 10. And speaking of the metaverse, guys, we have a very exciting announcement here. I was asked I was asked to be a host / moderator for the upcoming IOHK and Pavia Twitter space, which is going to be the 29th, 8 p.m. UTC. So I'm very excited for that, actually, for multiple reasons, of course. Number one, you got a case study there with Pavia trying to do Web3 metaverse magic. And, number two, you got Charles Hoskinson and Morgan. Now, Morgan, very strategic person, definitely on the regulatory side. Very regulatorily responsible, in my opinion, for an upcoming nascent space. They've made some partners that just look better with age. They were really early to Ready Player Me. People were like, what is this? What's going on? But then all of a sudden it became one of the hottest sort of like metaverse companies in Silicon Valley. Everybody's talking about it. And you know what? Their adoption of going from, now they probably have 4,000 different games or whatever, but going from just like a few hundred different metaverse type experiences or games to now supporting Ready Player Me avatars. It's really remarkable. And Pavia was there in just the first 100. So they took kind of this bet on something that needs to be a network effect, like a avatar standard. If you want to achieve some, on one of the layers, some interoperability. So, it's interesting. Meta-gravity too is another thing that looks like it's up and coming. They got, I think 3 companies out of 3 meta-gravities, one that's tackling persistent scalability for metaverse experiences without having to shard all the servers. So, and then you got Charles Hoskinson, and Charles Hoskinson has some keen abilities, let me tell you. I think some of his abilities will guide us to have the right intuition about how the transformative nature to this tech will unfold. And what I mean by that is you have Web3 over here. It's still being legitimized, guys. It's got a lot of promise. It's got a lot of potential. Oh man, it really does. It has a lot. But it's got to be legitimized. Then you have Apple and Meta. So let me ask you this, my friends. How does that look? How do those two things work together and fit? That's something that I think Charles can give us the right intuition on, as well as other things, just his thoughts on this space, right? I've been into it. I've been into Web3 and Metaverse before Meta changed to Meta, before Facebook changed to Meta. So I've seen all the different folks and characters and their opinions, and a lot of it to me just seemed like, oh, we're going to talk about it because it's the hot thing to talk about. I was never like that. I was always talking about it. And, to see how far we've come, and now that we're entering this chasm, I think we are going to expect some very interesting conversations between these two. Next No BS Radix research episode is going to be Friday at 11 a.m. East. No plans right now, but I did kind of call out Trove and Delphabets, and I messaged back and forth with Delphabets. They were asking me what the context of some of the things I want to talk about are. I sent them a video where I talk about the context, so now I'm just waiting to hear back. Otherwise, we'll just rift. We'll see what happens. Oh, and by the way, I think it was so Dan Hughes messaged me recently because I messaged him about a question to do a space, and then I didn't see it till like afterwards. So I don't know if we're gonna plan to do something soon regarding my question around a few things. My main question was just around something Justin Bonds pointed out when he was asking about global distribution of the community members who are participating in the community tests revolving around Cerberus and things of that nature. And I was kind of thinking about how important is global distribution when you're running something that is BFT style opposed to Nakamoto, where the nodes propagate the blocks to other nodes in Nakamoto. So I don't know if you wanted to talk about that more, but you might see some content on that. Okay. Guys, if you haven't, please look at this episode, because if you don't know what I'm talking about with Nakamoto versus BFT style consensus, you should watch this. This we go into it quite a bit. We use examples from an article written by Sebastian Guillemot and with Pavia and all the other stuff that he does. He's kind of like a tech, up and coming tech emperor. You know, he's kind of got his different things going on. Now, in this episode, I talk about where the hell does magic get found? And we use examples from his article around Algorand and Cardano to separate BFT and Nakamoto. We also talk about Radix, which is this up-and-coming DLT that potentially has solved one of the bigger parts of the trilemma and created a linear scalable framework while thinking about the other parts in tandem. Okay. So then Dan Hughes tweets out this regarding sort of economic security, okay, and shards, you know. And let me preface this by saying, guys, I know, okay, there's going to be some of you that comment stuff like this. Bro, we don't know what the fuck sharding is, but I highly support your hard work. I invested a tiny bit, but a big amount for me just because I saw how hard you work, which I respect, by the way. I respect that. That's kind of cool. I've noticed Dan Hughes is one of the hardest working people in this space, by the way, as well. So I do agree with you there. But when you say we, I will say, just speak for yourself, buddy. Speak for yourself, you know? A lot of people are trying to figure this out right now. And one of the things about this comment that it reminds me is that, yeah, you know, there's this weird time right now where we are debating sort of the tech. And it's just because the space is really competitive. You have a lot of noise, and to break through that noise, sometimes you have to show that you offer something different than everybody else. And Radix does this in their marketing when they discuss things like linear scalability, right? Having one ledger instead of all these different side chains or layer twos that they would call maybe a scaling solution when they're not, or having just a bunch of on-chain scaling solutions that you're going to try to parallelize with. One ledger that can scale theoretically infinitely, right? And when you make a claim like that, and nobody else has made sort of those claims, then you need to talk about the tech, guys. You need to talk about the tech because we need to see if this is BS or not. And there's a lot of unique things that Cerberus does and Radix does that you just wouldn't be able to, I think, know if you didn't know some things about what it does. So let's read this, because now that we got that out of the way, okay? Yes, I agree with Steve Jobs. You gotta do your marketing, you gotta do your thing. But at the same token, it's like, yeah, but this is like too important not to talk about the tech, is what the point is. And then you can go from the values if you understand the tech. You know, even the community members, they always say we shouldn't be. I'm telling you guys, if you understand the tech more, you're gonna have better marketing because you'll know what to market and how to back it up if you need to, just in case. But understanding the tech also allows you to see why the tech was built in the first place. And how are you gonna know how are you going to know how to market something if you just don't know why it was even built in the first place, you know? So, you know, it's interesting. But more on this later. It turns out that a property of Radix sharding model I thought was obvious may not be the case. After a conversation with Flay the Fox earlier this evening, as you know, Flay the Fox is the only fox that wears a suit. Some of that conversation revolved like one of those doors at a hotel around the economic security ecosec of a shard, or in the case of Radix, shard grouping, right? With regard to the amount of stake present in that shard throughout its lifetime. After reviewing some past conversations, there appears to be a common and gross misunderstanding of how shard security manifests when considering different safety models. So if you don't know what shards are, you can picture a ledger, and then you can picture splitting it in two, okay? Or making another one, right? Or just like a fucking mirror breaks and you got all the shards of the mirror. Imagine the ledger, it's like that. Okay, but why do you want to do that? That would separate these ledgers. I thought you were talking about linear scalability. Well, that's where Cerberus comes in, allows the different shards that you can now sort of activate or, you know, take away. And the shard space is so huge, you basically theoretically have an infinite amount of shards to add. But they all exist already, you know what I mean? So, you know, you just got these more shards, right? Okay, but I thought we were trying to linear scalability, all one thing. But they actually, through Cerberus, which is a lot of the research I'm conducting right now to try to explain, allows these shards to be interwoven in a way that creates a integrity in the state of the entire ledger with as many shards as you want. You know, well, it is capped, but it's capped at a ridiculous number of shards. So I'm only saying that because people might not know what shards are, and I'm trying to go back and forth from advanced study of this stuff, which is stuff that Dan is pointing out that wasn't obvious. It wasn't obvious to me, I'll be honest. And it's sort of the basics, right? Just trying to go back and forth between those two things. But he says, in fact, what I've observed is a general hammering of shard security into the probabilistic safety model, whether that is proof of work, proof of stake, or some other proof of variant. And it is wrong. With probabilistic safety, nothing is ever final. Nothing really is ever final. There always exists a risk that someone somewhere with enough resources can craft a competing version of history, right? Because that's where we want integrity in the state. We want the history to be accurate, right? Or we can rely on the history being right, right? Because it's a ledger. Show where everything is on the ledger. It's showing it, so we don't want that to change all of a sudden overnight. And presented as a masquerade of truth. Probabilistic safety is reliant on economic security because of the possibility of rollbacks, right? We just discussed rollbacks in my recent video, actually. And this actually brings some clarity. The expenditure of resources contributes directly and accumulatively to the security of the network as it becomes ever more prohibitive in terms of expense to craft a fake truth. So that was kind of an interesting thing when I read this. I don't know about you guys, but you know, the expenditure of resources contributes directly and accumulatively to the security of the network, right? So you can think about this in terms of, you know, in terms of like validators spending their resources, right? And as the expenditure increases, it becomes ever more prohibitive in terms of expense to craft a fake truth, right? But when we talk about things like Radix, where deterministic safety is sort of maybe misportrayed sometimes, we need to remember what Dan Hughes is about to say. Deterministic safety is very different. There is no possibility of a rollback. The detail may seem small, but with regard to economic security, it's actually a huge deal, especially from a sharding point of view. With deterministic safety, it's not how much stake is present in a shard that matters, but that no single actor in a shard controls more than 33% of the currently assigned stake to that shard. So let's break a couple things down. So if you predetermine the physics of a piece of software, right? That's determinism essentially. So you're already certain of what this is going to do, what the, parameters are, right? There's deterministic safety. It's already been determined. We already know what it's going to be. So then we talk about, okay, what's the case that this would become unsafe, right? And through a combination of making sure this case doesn't actually happen or is theoretically impossible to happen, and even from a long-range attack perspective, very unlikely to ever happen. Whereas probabilistic safety, you always have this sort of chance, okay, if you guys are starting to see the difference. With something like Radix, they've taken a lot of measures to, predetermine safety essentially, and make sure this stuff doesn't happen. But here's how it works. It's not how much stake is present in a shard. That doesn't matter. If there's more stake in a shard or less stake in the shard than the rest of the shards in the network, doesn't fucking matter, okay? But that no single actor in a shard controls more than 33%, which goes back to our 2f+1 when we're talking about these papers, when we're talking about the Byzantine generals problem, when we're talking about BFT, when we're talking about practical BFT, when we're looking at Tendermint, when we're looking at hot stuff, and then evolve, like how Dan Hughes kind of took some stuff from hot stuff, evolved it into Cerberus, right? We're talking about BFT style consensus here, okay? So, but that no single actor in a shard controls more than 33% of the currently assigned stake to that shard. Okay, so read that statement twice, think about it, and then read it thrice. So let's do that. So I think I read it twice. So now let's think about it. Okay. Did you think about it? Okay. So then read it thrice. With deterministic safety, it's not how much stake is present in a shard that matters. Doesn't matter. But that no single actor in a shard controls more than 33% of the currently assigned stake in that shard, right? So if you got 100,000 stake in a shard, let's say, from all the people that are delegating to the validators and the validators stake themselves, then 100,000, you would need about 33,000 to breach this, okay? So that's sort of where you have this now concept that we'll talk about, but that makes it very hard for this circumstance to actually exist. And even in a long-range attack circumstance, it'd be very hard to pull off, but theoretically impossible. But let's keep going here. So we read it once, now let's read it 2 more times to make it thrice. With deterministic safety, it's not how much stake is present in a shard that matters, but that no single actor in a shard controls more than 33% of the currently assigned stake to that shard. When they say no single actor, I guess they're really referring to the validators, which makes it kind of weird because a validator could be validating multiple shards. And I'm not sure how they spread their stake across multiple shards. So that's interesting. And by the way, it's also interesting from the standpoint that you have random shuffling and you have kind of a range that validators pick to use their hardware or resources on. And it's not really like they pick a single shard to validate. They're actually assigned to random shards. So you think about all those things, and then you think about what he's about to say, and it makes a lot of sense. So let's read it one more time. With deterministic safety, it's not how much stake is present in a shard that matters, but that no single actor in a shard controls more than 33% of the currently assigned stake to that shard. Okay, we read it. We read it, Dan Hughes. We freaking read it, man. Consider a shard which has 100,000 units of stake currently distributed between the assigned validators, providing no single actor controls validators, which constitute over 33% or over 33,000 units, which is 33%. The shard is secure according to BFT consensus balance. Fair enough. That makes sense. In the next epoch, now I think this is going to be specific to Radix. Is this the random? Yeah. Okay. In the next epoch, now remember, epochs are 5 fucking minutes on Radix. Sorry for swearing so much this video. If 5 minutes, I mean, that's a lot of, you know, you can go to Las Vegas and they got these places called casinos there. And sometimes they got like cards and you can see them shuffle. And by the time that somebody at a poker table, the dealer actually shuffles the cards, it could be, you know, it could be longer than 5 minutes, man. So the epochs on Radix are quicker than the shuffles happening in the, you know, in the Sin City, in the place of magic and gambling. So, you know, it's interesting here, but in the next epoch, some of those validators are shuffled out and new ones are shuffled in. Now the shard has, let's say, 1 million units of stake assigned to it across the assigned validators. But again, providing that no single actor controls over 333,000 units of stake in that shard, then the shard is secure. Given the deterministic safety properties, it doesn't matter if there is 100 billion stake units assigned to that shard. So the more stake units assigned to a shard does not matter. And all the validators are adversarial. There is nothing they can do to roll back what happened when the shard had just 100,000. This makes so much sense to me after reading what I've read on Cerberus, though. This part does, especially the part about rollbacks. And the reason is because it kind of goes back to, I think, our conversations around atomic commitment. So, like, the only vulnerabilities in this model are the here and now, because trying to change the past is impossible. Trying to change the future is also impossible with self-corrective measures, essentially, right? So, you know, let's just go back into this. They can cause liveness and safetyness issues during their epoch if they are all adversarial, which would be hard to time it because, again, validators don't actually get assigned to the shard that they want. They get assigned to random shards. So if all the validators are adversarial in the fucking shard, and the shard during that epoch is compromised, and there can be 100 validators per shard, right? And the shard during that epoch is compromised, but everything that happened in the previous epochs is safe. Just remember that. With deterministic safety, economic security is only relevant in the now, okay? There's a great book out there. It's called The Power of Now, okay? I remember getting that from somebody that was like a monk, or somebody that was very monk-esque gave me that book. They were like, hey, read this book. It's Power Now. So, okay. The ECOSEC, economic security metric, in previous epochs is ephemeral. It only applied to that shard during that epoch, okay, the power of now, and has no bearing on the economic security of that shard in previous or future epochs. So let me ask you this, you know, even if people don't understand sharding and you think that people are making these conceptions that, oh, wait a second, you know, why did we talk about the tech? We talk about it because sometimes people are making these misconceptions that aren't reality. And they're saying things like, well, if a shard has too much stake in it, it could have all these sort of things going on. And it's like, well, until we got guys like Dan Hughes, right, who also know this thing that Steve Jobs says, right, the values, communicate the values. We have guys like Dan Hughes who are no BS to give us the realities of the situation so we can sort of at least talk in a sensical way when we talk about this stuff and make sure that we're not making stuff up. In other news, founder of on-chain gaming studio, Captain. I don't know if you like that. You know, I think there's some ways to explain the ecosystem of Cardano, but to me, it feels like you're creating this nice little game studio. Has so these guys have this on-chain game in ecosystem, whatever. They have a guy named Captain. He's the founder. He's gone and done something that I think is actually going to start happening more with these sort of projects that have been alive and have had a founder who's core to the actual thing. You know, just a big community guy. I mean, the Cardano community is sick. It's awesome. And it's just fun, man. It's just a lot of fun. And, you know, Captain, he's just this lovable guy. You know, he's just like, he's wicked smart, but he's also just like a lovable freaking guy. And he has done something that I think is very smart here because he grows facial hair. Gets a lot of compliments for his facial hair. So instead of having to go and hire an influencer to go and talk about this beard oil, he has made a product that he can show off on every one of these Twitch streams that he's already garnered a nice community to form around. And I think that is kind of interesting. So I asked him, I was just asking him some basic stuff with physical products. I was like, hey, I'm dead, Cap, because I was laughing. How long are you guaranteed to manufacture this? Is it drop shipped with a label? Sometimes people will just find somebody that just can kind of, you know, manufacture and ship. They'll just have a label designed. I'll make sure that they put that label on. And then I asked, or are you composing manufacturing locally and shipping the product yourself? Which I was hoping he'd say yes to. And that's why I said, how long are you guaranteed to manufacture this? So he says, we format, extract, package, ship ourselves, which is probably going to be most of the time better product, you know. We will produce as long as people are buying. So that's kind of, you know, I mean, you can't really say that, but I hear of it. I said, okay, I feel your vibe. And then he said, we'll also be expanding into physical stores because we can. And, you know, that's just kind of some stuff there. Formulate, he meant to say. So then he says, also, we can white label for other brands if there is significant demand. But more interested in our own obvious. This guy is shooting for the fucking moon, and I love it. All right, Captain. Well, I wish you best of luck there, man. And, you know, make sure to market your product. You already have somebody in-house that can actually use your freaking product, man. So that's just some friendly advice, but don't take it from me. You know what you're doing. I hope. And we'll continue on here as we look into Sora, which is this AI video magic. Okay, well, whenever we talk about video magic, we always think about things like Harry Potter. But when we talk about AI, we usually think about The Matrix. But now think about making both of those movies actually coalesce into one universe and being able to do that with a prompt in AI. I want the Harry Potter Matrix film. And that is where we're heading. But we're also heading to, of course, the simple reality of us being able to make everything that we use AI to generate and make a video into objects, which creates a immersive sort of a piercing of a veil that separates us from the content to live inside and go inside with our VR devices, which 53 million Americans now have, apparently. But when it comes to using Sora, because I was going to try to make some cool stuff when I first heard about it, I just want you to know that you don't have to rush because it says there is no word yet on when Sora will launch to the public. Based on previous OpenAI releases, we could see a version of it released to some people at some point in 2024. How uncertain is that? Is that the most uncertain thing you've ever heard? Well, get used to it because that's what tech is. Okay. I was looking at the website for Sora, and you know, it's just basic stuff. Look at this prompt. A stylish woman walks down a Tokyo street filled with warm, glowing neon and animated city signage. She wears a black leather jacket, a long red dress, and black boots. I'd say it's pretty accurate. I don't know how they define stylish, though. For me, I want to see a little bit more flair. I want to see a little bit more stuff to make us feel like we don't know what's going on. But this is a very interesting point I'm trying to bring up here, because if you look, that is amazing, though. Look at the actual, I don't know, man. That is so good. Gosh. That's scary good. Yeah, but when we look at the way that these AIs generate these prompts, what's kind of funny is we have these common definitions of things. You know what I mean? Like stylish is something that we could say and we could actually be very subjective about it. And what I find stylish, you might not. So it's funny how AI is sort of generalizing that. And I'm sure that there's going to have to be some customizations around that reflect into easy UI or user experience customizations. So I don't know, it doesn't matter, to be honest. Okay, next let's watch this, because we're going to be talking about digital identities. You know, when it comes to the world of crypto and blockchain, one of these values is, imagine if you could just like own your own identity maybe and not have it be part of this whole big thing called like the US corporation or whatever. It's sort of is a freeing idea to believe that every human has the right to own their own identity. And it doesn't have to be the dystopian version, guys. Just because we say digital, don't forget the self-sovereign we put in front, right? When we say SSI, self-sovereign identity, we're talking about something different than the social credit score. Oh, we're going to freeze the truckers in Canada. Oh, you got this political belief, we're going to freeze your bank account. No, that is dystopia for sure. Okay. What we're talking about is actually different. Us cool kids in the motherfucking streets out here and blockchain are not talking about the CBDC dystopia. We're talking about something much more practical for now, and then eventually probably a bit more. I won't speak for Radix, but I'll speak for myself. For me, I think that as a, you know, just 25 something, you know, revolutionarily spirited young man, I can't help but flirt with the idea of every human owning their own identity and having sovereignty over that. And what that would actually mean if we had that, and how the rest of the world would have to conform around that one principle. I actually quite like that idea, to be honest. But anyways, we'll kind of just see what's happening in 2024 first, and then we'll see what happens in the future. So in this, you're going to hear a couple of key things, okay? If you haven't seen Radix, you haven't seen their mobile wallet yet, you're gonna right now. Please watch it. Please just watch this piece, dude. Because every time I show somebody this, you know what they say? They freak out. They're like, wait a second, are personas what Atala Prism is working on? And I'm like, there's something there. And that's when they get kind of hooked into studying Radix, even if it's to take tech back to other ecosystems. But the implementation of personas, it's still got some ways to go, but at least they have something to show us. And we can see the effects of personas in this video that I'm going to be playing to you now.
Ready for the mainstream. Our portal into that user experience is the Radix wallet. Immediately, we've got a design and a presentation that's very different from the typical crypto wallet. It feels familiar and appealing to anybody. Functionally speaking, we've got a summary of all my smart accounts. With that, I immediately see what matters to me, a simple view of everything I own. At a glance, I can get an idea of all the different kinds of native assets that I've filed away in my accounts, and it's all very clear and understandable. By the way, you'll notice that off to the right, I'm showing the icons for smart accounts and native assets. Those are the Radix stack technologies that make this part of the wallet possible. You'll see those technology icons change throughout the preview as different combinations of the 5 technologies work together. Okay, on my phone screen, if you look at the topmost box on the list, you'll see my main account. Let's see what it would look like if I open that account. Inside my main account, the Radix wallet breaks out my assets into different types that each have different meanings and purposes. That's only possible because Radix's native assets each have a clear definition of what they are and what they can do. The wallet can look at each asset in my account, read those definitions, and show me what I've got. This is so much more direct, automatic, and reliable than what MetaMask can do with smart contract tokens on Ethereum. So you'll notice 4 different types of assets here: tokens, NFTs, LP tokens, and badges. Right now we're looking at my tokens, but let's see what I've got under NFTs. It's easy to think of NFTs as just Bored Apes and random art collectibles, but they really can be used for so much more. An NFT can represent digital ownership of anything from a sword you won in your favorite game to a digital ticket to your favorite sporting event. Thinking even bigger, an NFT could represent the loan you took out to buy, or even the title of ownership to that car. An NFT can represent your ownership of virtually any unique thing that you can imagine, and you can hold them all right in here in your Radix wallet. On Radix, native assets mean that all of these different kinds of NFTs are still automatically recognized by the wallet, and each one is nicely displayed with all of the metadata that makes it unique, just like you see here. For example, imagine a Web3 crowdfunding website called Collabify. I've got some NFTs here that represent some albums that I've helped to fund on Collabify. In my wallet, I can see the metadata that makes those NFTs special. It's the same metadata that makes the Collabify site recognize what those NFTs mean. And the Radix wallet can do that without any special integration to Collabify at all. If you're a developer, this is also really exciting because the NFTs that you create will automatically get this kind of first-class presentation in the Radix wallet without any extra work on your part. We'll see in a minute what I can do with these NFTs, but first, let's have a look at my LP tokens. So, what is an LP token? The concept is maybe something you're familiar with if you've already been playing with DeFi apps today. For example, if you contribute tokens to a Uniswap liquidity pool, you get back some amount of this funny token called an LP token. LP tokens represent your percentage of ownership of that pool and your share of the rewards that that pool generates for you. Liquidity pools are one of the superpowers of DeFi. They repeat over and over again across apps. They allow anyone to get directly rewarded for putting their money to work. It's basically what banks have been doing for hundreds of years, but now you can do it with just a few bucks. But even though liquidity pools are crucially important, wallets today don't understand the concept of LP tokens, and so they can't show you things like where they came from or what they're worth. Basically, they're really confusing to deal with. Here in the Radix wallet, though, look at my MegaSwap LP tokens at the bottom. I can see exactly what those tokens are. Right now, I can redeem them on MegaSwap for a mix of some XRD and some RBTC tokens. That's not just convenient, it has to be this clear and easy if we want to bring the benefits of liquidity pools to mainstream users. Last, we can also have a look at my badges. Think about the kinds of things that you hold in your physical wallet. It's not just money and financial stuff. You've also got things like IDs and membership cards. You need things that can prove what you're allowed to do. Badges bring that concept into Web3. They're real digital assets that you hold in your Radix wallet, but their purpose is specifically authorization. That means that they can be presented to Web3 applications just like flashing an ID card. Badges could be used for everything from your gym membership to your driver's license to the access pass to a private club in the metaverse. Here in my Radix wallet, I've got a user badge for that Collabify site where I got those backer NFTs that we saw. I've also got a qualified investor badge. We'll see how presenting these badges to an application works a little bit later. So you've seen the tokens, NFTs, LP tokens, and badges in my Radix wallet. Now let's see how I can connect my wallet and start actually doing stuff with all these assets.
Okay, this is the key part, guys, I want you to pay attention to.
Let's say that I want to connect to Collabify, and I pull up their website on my desktop browser so I can have a nice big screen experience. Of course, the first thing I expect to do here is to log in. We're not just doing email and password in Web3, we can do much better than that. In fact, we want to do more than just log in here. Web3 is supposed to be about having ownership of our digital lives and digital assets. So that means that when I connect to a Web3 app, I want to define who I want to be and what I want to bring with me in this particular corner of the web. That's why the developers of Collabify here built their application on Radix. And for their users, it all starts with that Radix Connect button in the upper right corner of their website. So let's click it.
Okay. Look at that. Using this persona, what you're about to see is what I call the very first sort of look at what crypto Ecomm, a mature crypto Ecomm, because you know Shopify back in 18 or 2020, somewhere around there, started using the Coinly or whatever it was to allow crypto payments. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about what he's about to provide is shipping information and an email. That's all you basically will need other than your currency or value to transact. You just need to provide FedEx or UPS, your shipping information, your email, and that's just like the freight carrier, right? But the persona actually protects that information from the app. So now the app can't reuse that stuff. And I'm not saying that they're already hooked up to freight carriers. What I am trying to say is this is an early look at what mature crypto Ecomm will look like.
And right away, the Radix wallet back on my phone asks me if I want to log in. How did that happen? Well, I've already set up my desktop browser and my phone to automatically use Radix Connect. When I'm logging in like this, they make a direct encrypted connection without a service in the middle. And with that connection, the phone automatically received the login request. From my perspective as a user, though, my laptop and my phone just magically link together. Okay.
And by the way, doing that and adding this browser extension, so any, let's say e-commerce website in the future can just now have a Radix. It's so easy, guys. Like, I just basically took my phone out with my Radix wallet, and I'm not paid to say this shit, okay? I'm just telling you the facts. Bro, like I scanned a QR code, I signed some message on my phone, and boom, it was there. And now anytime that I want to go on to, let's say, if I'm not using my personal computer, the one that I use to record and stuff, then I'll just kind of go onto my other computer and just know that like both of my computers, I can like go on with my Radix mobile wallet. It's no difference. You just scan the QR code. They're the first mobile wallet, I think, that have actually succeeded in combining digital identity software into their interface, making it extremely easy, which provides the best foundation I've personally seen for building something like a mature crypto e-commerce vertical. Now, let's continue.
This isn't the first time that I'm connecting to Collabify, though, so my wallet already knows that I want to log in and how. On this site, I'm RadMat. RadMat is a persona. Remember that personas use that on-ledger system that I described that keeps my login secure and recoverable. So let's go ahead and log in here. With one tap, I'm logged in as RadMat. And I didn't...
Oh, look at that. See that? Email, shipping address. Okay. But you got to remember that this is actually being shared here. It does not mean that Collabify will know your shipping address or your email. And that's the tech of Radix and their personas, which is their digital identity solution.
Didn't have to type in a password to do it. Behind the scenes, my wallet sent the login to Collabify over Radix Connect, and the wallet, persona, and website all conducted a strong cryptographic process to verify that login. That's pretty amazing on its own, but look what's happened on the Collabify site. Connecting wasn't just logging in. In the window under the Radix Connect button, I can see some pieces of information that I've chosen to share with Collabify from my wallet. It's got 2 of my smart account addresses and also my email address and my postal address. This is a really important point. This isn't data about me that Collabify is storing on its servers Web 2 style. It's data held in my Radix wallet, and I've given the wallet permission to share that data with this site. I control what I share and who I share it with, and I can keep everything up to date all in my wallet. It completely flips the relationship between me and the apps that I connect to. It puts me in charge. In fact, the next time I connect to Collabify, I could easily choose to connect with a different persona and share a different set of data. This is a fantastic tool for privacy, and the Radix wallet makes it super easy.
Okay. So the last thing I'll say before we move on to the next segment is that, listen guys, you got to remember a couple of things, okay? Now, this presentation was given in 2022. Radix has already launched smart contracts. Babylon is here. The Radix mobile wallet's here. There's a few fields they're going to be adding to personas that they haven't, and that'll be coming down the pipe. But personas itself is a feature that works with fields you can already add and take advantage of as dApps. So, this is just to point out that, some really innovative shit, bro. And yeah, let's continue to the next segment. Okay, so what else do we got? Oh, there I am. Okay, so Dan Hughes said this, which I thought was kind of interesting. Surfing around X before I hit the hay, and why on earth is Saito official? Doesn't have more market share. I really don't know. Genuinely interested in novel tech, smart founders who are incredibly committed. I don't hear guys like Dan saying this much, so I'm gonna pay attention to Saito. Dan is already naturally a skeptical guy. He said that on one of the Twitter spaces. We were honored to have him on. So he's not just gonna say that willy-nilly. I'm kind of interested. Building a self-sufficient layer 1 blockchain that scales without compromising openness. Designed to scale, built without trade-offs, which is a bold claim, bro. All right. Oh, and other news, I found something kind of funny though, because I was gonna pull up the Atala website just to see what they got going on recently after just kind of comparing personas to DIDs on Cardano. DIDs, first time I heard about DIDs was Cardano. So when I saw personas, I was like, yo, this is it. This is how it needs to look. This is how it needs to feel for users. And I've been in lots of discussions around the different types of DIDs that you may have, in a Cardano wallet. The problem with Cardano's wallet architecture for maybe streamlining integrations of DIDs is probably just the the decentralized nature. For the Radix mobile wallet, it's kind of built in. It's open source, so that way other developers can build other wallets and add things to it. But any updates on the Radix mobile wallet trickle into the entire ecosystem. Cardano's not like that, really. It has a bunch of different wallet providers. It's very, it's not top down in that way. You know what I mean? So it's interesting. But I found this, which was funny. So apparently some guy, not actually affiliated with Atala Prism, Cardano maximalist, I just took advantage of the name donate reiterate, he says, I guess. He's from the East Coast, so that makes sense. We're a bunch of bastards over here. And then he says, this page has the potential to reach over 100,000 followers with the correct management, which is probably true. Cardano will be #1, and Atala will play a big role in that. I'm selling the page for 5,000 ADA. I don't know, man. I think Atala is sort of multifaceted, right? And then Atala is under IO, so I don't know if they needed Twitter. I was just curious, so I searched it. But I thought that was funny. So let's see what they got here going on. Now, as we know, IMX and Atala are the biggest players for the digital identity space in Cardano, still, to my knowledge. Driven by innovation, Atala Prism is a self-sovereign, see those? Identity SSI platform and service suite for verifiable data and digital identity. Built on Cardano, it offers core infrastructure for issuing DIDs, decentralized identifiers, and verifiable credentials alongside tools and frameworks to help expand your ecosystem. So, let's look at the case studies here, because there's one that's pretty famous. Ethiopia's Ministry of Education. Input Output partnered with Ethiopia's Ministry of Education to implement a national student and teacher ID and attainment recording system based on blockchain. Atala Prism's identity solution enables authorities to create tamper-proof educational credentials for 3,500 schools, 5 million students, and 750,000 teachers. It's pretty big. And the reason why that's important, guys, is because, being able to have some sort of proof for your educational credentials, it's not something that everybody in the world currently actually has the luxury of. And to make it out of those certain places and to go elsewhere, sometimes you need those credentials, you need to prove them. So by giving people this kind of solution here, they hope to probably improve the educational system at whole in Ethiopia and extend the opportunities for students that want to maybe just do stuff outside of Ethiopia, you know what I mean? Or inside, even if it's that messy. So I thought that was interesting. Do we have anything else? I think that was kind of it for today. I'm trying to think. No, I think that was kind of it, man. We covered the gamut. We had some AI, metaverse, and blockchain stuff. So that's as good as you want it on a top secret episode 35 in the books. Thank you so much for watching. And remember, keep everything that I tell you top secret unless you want to share it and help a brother out. Peace.